Today is Tuesday, November 19th, 2024. The time is 6:00 p.m. I'd like to call the regular village board meeting to order. Before we call let's go through roll call. Myself, Mike Cappers, present.
Donnie Kern present.
Frank Secret present.
Caleb
Garn present. Chris Marino here.
Frank Crown present.
Kristen Beck.
If we can stand for the public allegiance or pledge of allegiance for the public here. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call the public hearing to order.
Somebody's zooming in.
The 2025 proposed budgets. Anything on the 2025 proposed budgets? Let's call the regular village board meeting to order. Public comment on agenda items, 2 minutes per person and 14 minutes per topic. Anybody have anything to say for public comment? Anybody online?
Do we need I'm sorry, Mike. Do we need a motion to close the public hearing or just move on?
Just move on.
Okay. Just want to make sure we did it right. That's all.
Yeah, you just have to have in the minutes that it was closed the public hearing and moved it.
Just want to make sure we did it right. That's all.
Approval of agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
The first and second, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, nay? Carries. Discussion, possible approval, update ordinance 15-1-3 to reflect current Wisconsin code language.
Gotta go back to consent agenda. Cause that was that one that just happened, the approval of the agenda.
Consent agenda, gotcha. Somebody want to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, or is there anything anybody wants to take out?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Discussion, possible approval, ordinance update 15-1-3 to reflect current Wisconsin code language.
Tony should be on here.
Yeah, I'm on here. Can you hear me?
10-4.
So going through the ordinance, I found out that 15-1-3 was outdated like 3 governors ago. And so in order for us to enforce the current codes from the state of Wisconsin, we have to update the ordinance. So we have some backbone to do it. All the municipalities are doing that.
Just to be clear, Tony, you have been auditing to the UDC 2016 code though, so all houses that have been built have been audited to the UDC 2016, which you
Yes,
want.
everything we do is to current code. But if somebody would argue that, they could look back at the ordinance and say, the ordinance states that it's this code, not the current code.
It's a good idea to update it. It needs to be updated. My question on this is, there's one page in the packet that shows, like changing the references to the new SPS references, but I think there's other references in that section. If you scroll further down in the code, that also need to be updated with SPS. But other than that, it's a good idea to get it done.
So we should try and roll that in with our next set of ordinance updates. Then, so Tony, I just want to say thank you for bringing this to our attention. Is this a fee you charge on and in excess for ordinance changes or catching this kind of thing, or is this something you're just letting us know?
I'm just letting you know, I have talked to the state about this, and the state is actually the one that sent this update. I believe that sheet of paper is in your packet on what they would like to see. And I agree with Paul that everything should be updated, but this is what the state would like to see, as well as us.
Why don't we? I'm just gonna think. Why don't we table it tonight and let it come back with with the whole ordinance cleaned up? If we can delegate that to someone to do that.
We'll work with Tony and we'll get it cleaned up. That's fine.
That's what I was gonna like, was come back with a complete, full, clean,
Yeah.
with all the appropriate statutes and codes. We're gonna motion the table to allow the village attorney and building inspector to revise the whole ordinance and bring back next month for approval.
Thank you, second.
First and a second, any further discussion?
I only have one comment. Tony, make sure you charge us for any of that time, you know, or whatever you charge us for your ordinance. Insight, make sure you charge us for that, just because, you know, you're working with, the attorney on that. We appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
All right, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Discussion possible approval, Board of Commissioners of Public Lands, application resolution 2024-07, authorizing the issuance of $1,510,000 to the state trust fund loan to provide funding for the purchase of property in tax increment district number 6. Bob, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I think Josh Lowe is on. This is, in consideration of purchasing additional village land. Josh has a presentation.
I don't see Josh on yet.
Okay.
Let's send Josh a text and then we'll come back to it when he comes on. All right, let's move on to C, discussion possible approval 2025 wages.
I've had a chance to review these and I would like to change the raises from the recommended 4% to 4.5, which was what was originally requested.
The 4% came out of the Finance and Personnel Committee as their recommendation. Donnie's put a lot of time and effort into checking out what other cities and municipalities have been paying. Donnie, can you speak to?
Just before you go, but just point of clarification, I'm assuming it just was a typo in when this was updated back to 4%. The second position from the top still says 4.5. I'm assuming it still means 4.0. Just as,
I think that's correct, and that calculation under the proposed rate, I believe, reflects 4%.
I just wanted to make sure that we were. Thank you.
I'd like to take a moment to talk about this, if I may. I know the committee has went through this and had several meetings and discussions and reached out to several people on the board, myself personally, and discussed with the board this matter because it is, you know, a very delicate one. The 4.5% was presented by staff, and we had, as a committee, had pondered it, had discussed it, and looked at the different cost structures. We've looked at 3%, 3.5%, 4%, 4.5%. We've also looked at other municipalities and what they're at. There was an email that was sent to all the board members that I received late this afternoon, 4 o'clock, from a administrator in North Hudson who did a survey, took the time to send out a survey to all the different areas. And if you look at what we had with regards to our wages and what that survey is showing, the only one that would be higher paid than us right now that I see, and I could be corrected if I'm wrong, would be the city of Hudson with regards to the administrator, public works directors, etc. Town of Somerset did a 3% increase. Village of Baldwin did a 3.5% increase. I know the village would like, the staff would like to see 4%. Their argument was heard, and it was discussed with us at finance about trying to become comparable to what, you know, that of what the officers were, and in our contract negotiations with the association, we gave the same 4%. And that has been accepted as a tentative agreement, and it'll be put forth later on in this packet. So 3.5%, 4%, I think you know, the 4% come as a recommendation, and I know Brandon, you'd like to see 4.5%. I'd love to give 4.5% all the time. But I think you know, what we're looking at around the area and what other places are at, I think our committee has come forth with a good proposal. They've looked at it, they've evaluated it, they've taken into other considerations, other areas, so that it's to be competitive. And you know, if somebody wants to bring 4.5% on the table and put it there, I'd ask why. I mean, I think the committee has pondered this and come up with a recommendation, and I support the recommendation of the committee.
So Donnie, you, Chris, and Mike all voted for a raise for yourself as trustees. That was last year.
No, for subsequent trustees.
Yep,
not
so a
for
raise, so
ourselves.
you're fine rate, a raise for a trustee, not for yourself, sure.
Yes.
But you were fine for a raise for trustees. I didn't hear
I stand
much
behind that,
gnashing of teeth. I did not hear as much gnashing of teeth for that. You and Mike recommended we give back money to someone who pleaded no contest for taking money, for stealing from the village. I didn't hear any fiscal responsibility talks then. Donnie, Mike, and Chris recommended that we put surveillance equipment in the public works vehicles. I didn't hear any fiscal responsibility talks around that. You also, Mike and Chris also voted to give away property within the industrial park. I did not hear any talk of fiscal responsibility at that point. Our public works guys have come up with self-watering plants. Just as one thing on here that was gonna save overtime wages. Tasia saved us money by not putting announcements in the paper anymore and coming up with a consent agenda. Our employees work hard. I think they deserve what they asked for.
Really deserve it. We certainly work hard and we appreciate all of them. It's just a delicate balance. We have to be accountable to the taxpayers as well.
Yeah, I just want that conversation when it comes to voting for raises for the trustees and the president. I don't hear that same accountability.
Well, it's been a couple years.
Did we put it on Facebook when you asked for raises for the trustees? Cause I think that's another step that's too far. I don't think it's right to be putting these people's wages on blast on Facebook. I don't know if you've talked to the guys since you've been down there, but they don't really like that.
Public record.
well, that's fine, yeah, but I know it's well within your right to be a dick, but
Wow.
That's what it was.
Clean it up there. Somebody wanna make a motion before you move on?
I just want a point of order.
Mr.
A couple of things you stated about fiscal responsibility. When the surveillance equipment or the equipment was brought forward, it was an offer to offset some of the costs by trying to find a different way to be more efficient with plowing and utilizing the trucks. And it was talked about, it was debated, and it wasn't decided upon, and it wasn't brought up again. Same thing with the trustee. We, as a committee, we felt as trustees, everybody, that everybody should get the same increase. This board has taken the opportunity, debated it, and said that's not what we're going to do, and it wasn't brought up again. We heard what you had to say. But in this regard, we've looked at it, we've looked at other areas, and we come up with a proposal and a recommendation, and that fiscal responsibility has been held all along. So I resent the fact that you say that, that I am, spending money, taxpayers' money in a unfrugalous way.
I didn't say that, I just brought up your
You
motion.
called me a dick, so.
I did say that.
Somebody wanna make a motion so we move on?
I make a motion to approve a 4% recommended by the finance committee for upcoming wages.
Is there a first, is there a second?
I thought there was a motion on there, you were just introducing the topic, so.
He didn't have a motion.
No,
So now there's a motion on the table, is there a second?
thank you.
I'll second the motion. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I call for a roll call vote on this.
Roll call vote. Donnie,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Seacar, or Caleb, sorry. Aye. Chris Marino,
Aye.
myself, yes. Brandon Crone,
Nay.
Chris Dubak.
Aye.
Motion carries. Discussion possible approval of 2025 proposed budgets.
Questions on it?
Kind of gone through this at length. Does anybody have any
Well, the
questions?
board hasn't, the committee has, but the only one that was involved with the committee was, meetings on that. Ryan and most of them, Ryan and one.
Yeah, I listened to most of your budget here.
But if anybody's having any questions about it, definitely talk about it.
Emily, Andrea she's online if anybody has any questions for the treasurer.
So we're projecting roughly 6.8% in additional revenues.
Yes.
$150,000 increase, which looks like only 24,000 roughly is from the tax levy. Everything else is from other sources. anything significant that was invested into or as a priority for next year?
Yes, we took a significant amount of money and put it into, the outlay, capital outlay for, fire engine. We have a
Is it the capital improvements project or the regular budget?
capital outlay
Okay,
for a fire engine. I think that was where a majority of the, I think it was 50,000 that we put towards that, and then there was a significant amount put towards parks, for parks renovations and stuff as for our discussions and in our special meeting.
the rest is more just general.
Just operating costs.
General, yeah, operating
Correct.
incremental increases.
Correct. You want to make a motion?
Do we have a estimate of what this does for the mill rate at all? Yes.
The mill rate was 6.24, and it's going to be at 6.25, which is represents about a 4% increase in our.
So you said it again, no, please.
It was 6.24 is what it was previous, and with the additional increase in the mill rate set aside for the truck, it was 6.5. But that could change. Andrea,
6.24 to 6.25.
6.5.
6.5.
Yeah, Andrea, I believe you can comment on that too, right?
Yes, good evening. Previously, it was 6.34. And with this mill rate, it'll be 6.42 roughly per 1,000.
What is that percentage wise for an increase?
So it's, I don't know about percentage wise, but as far as the tax impact, it'll be roughly $45 more on a $300,000 value house.
You said 300,000, Andrea?
Yep.
Less than 2%.
This budget has been, obviously, I'm assuming has been corrected for some of the 4 point. Wages that.
Yeah.
That's what it was, yeah.
Correct, just making sure that, I know it went back and forth with different budget proposals at different percentages.
Bill Guerin, make a motion to adopt the 2025 proposed budget as submitted.
Donnie Kern, second.
First and second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Discussion possible approval 2024 tax levy resolution 2024-08.
Yeah, we're going approval of budgets. Donnie Kern make a motion to approve resolution 2024-08. Being resolved that the 2024 tax levy be set at $2,139,454.21.
I will second.
First and second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Discussion, first reading of ordinances. Title 11, Chapter 3, offenses against property.
Just a quick, this is a first reading. We went through these all in Public Works and reviewed them. If you want us to go through these and highlight the changes, or if you want to take and read through them and take a minute to look at the changes and offer up any opinions. Again, this is just a first reading. We're not looking for any other than discussion. We're not looking for any approval tonight. We want to make sure you guys have had a chance to take a look at them. The rest of the board's had a chance to take a look at them. We've pondered them on the Public Works and debated them and discussed them and changed them, and this is the final product.
I see the deletions are striked out, but how can we tell the additions?
The additions should be underlined.
Correct.
Okay.
So strike throughs are deleted, underlined or
Okay, I
added.
just came across an underlined one. I hadn't seen it yet. Thank you very much.
In Title 12, the Parks and Rec, can we look at B4? The way it reads now, throwing stones and objects prohibited, no person shall throw stones.
Let me
or
get
other-
to you. Let me get to you.
Okay.
What did it say, 12 what?
12.1.1 for B.
And you said D,
B4, yep.
okay?
So the way it reads that no person shall throw stones or other objects in or into any park. But it makes no mention of recreational inflatable balls. Do we need to make any mention of that or?
I think that's a good point we're gonna bring up other than, you know, sports equipment. right?
Yes, thank you, yep.
With the exception,
So
should we add in with the exception of, any sports paraphernalia, no person shall throw stones or objects in the park.
Or missiles.
or
Missiles has been deleted. Because they're all over in the Ukraine right now. Would that satisfy this?
Thank you.
So basically saying nothing can be thrown in or any park except for recreational.
Sports paraphernalia.
Yeah.
Unless you got it better.
No, when you change it from throwing stones and missiles to other objects, it just needs clarification on the sports equipment.
Hazardous or harmful objects or
At the
something.
beginning of that, you would say, with the exception of sports paraphernalia, no person shall throw stones or other objects into or around the park.
I had a similar comment about the objects,
Yeah, it gets vague.
yeah, because that could be a baseball.
Yeah.
Football.
Good catch.
Anybody
Does
have
that-
any
does that
discussion on?
Meet the muster of, the attorney, if you just put that caveat at the beginning?
Yeah, I think that works fine. Do something like that. I had a comment in chapter 6, the public nuisances.
Chapter 6.
6-3K,
Which one?
K, it's accumulation of refuge. And the title is still there, but everything after the title was deleted. You should either delete the title or keep some sort of items after the title.
Can you restate that again? What section? Because
It's on page 2 of chapter 6. print out. 11-6-3. K.
Understood. I think we were stating accumulating of refuge would just be standalone rather than clarification as part of K. So that would be the considered nuisance would be accumulations of refuge.
Then you just wanted.
You want to clarify?
Yeah, just
Yeah, I-
clarify, add something after that title, because titles aren't the enforceable part, it's the language after the titles that.
What would this board like to see?
We'll leave it, essentially,
Leave it as is.
leave it as is.
Is there anything to add or?
And or refuse or other garbage.
Yeah, you can talk about trash, garbage, refuse, anything like that.
I get what you're trying to do, is just scale it down, but the title doesn't, like he said, doesn't do it, it's the
You know,
definition.
Any further discussion on those first reading of ordinances?
make a motion that we,
No motion.
no,
Discussion, thoughts,
discussion, we'll bring it back when you're ready for final approval. Thank you very much.
One thing I wanted to point out, if you can, on the final page 6 of 6. Under the Title 12, Chapter 1, Parks and Recreation, Section M. You know, we have a season fee in there, was proposed to delete of $10 per participant paid to the village clerk. And we need to change, the league schedule shall be contact information, submitted to, instead of village clerk, that should be struck and put parks coordinator. And, we need to visit the fact of, are we going to delete the $10 per participant fee, or are we going to keep that in or revisit that as its entirety? This last year, we collected just a little over $2,100 in 2024 in that regards. And our expenses for maintaining the fields was right around 2,800, which is anticipated to spend a little bit on it, but I don't know if you want that to change for a policy that we were talking about, or if you want to leave something of that regards in.
So regarding M1 with Jason Parker, I'm fine with that, but maybe we put in there that the park recorder is responsible for submitting a copy to the clerk for public records reasons. You know, just to make sure that it's on file for public records reasons.
We also have that in other areas too. Do you want that changed there as well?
I think just to be consistent, you know, that, you know, whoever it's being submitted to, they should also submit it to the village clerk for official record keeping.
I find that redundancy isn't necessary at that point, because if someone made a public records request, then I would just seek that from the parks
I just
coordinator.
want making sure that there's,
Yeah.
that the record is kept is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and I think keeping it in one place would be better, because if the parks coordinator has something and then he gives it to me, but then if that would get updated and I don't get it, then we all of a sudden have a confusion, so.
I'm
My
just making,
preference-
my reference is making sure that the public record is kept.
Yeah, and I guess I'm just clarifying, because you kind of looked at me for my thought.
Yeah.
Is I think if it's kept with the parks coordinator, that is fine, and if I need it for some reason, then I can go to that
I mean,
person.
You're kind of the overall custodian of all records.
Right.
That's why I wanted to make sure that at least the record is.
Yep.
So that was what I was looking at in that discussion. So if the clerk is fine with it, then I don't see any change that done that. So I'm okay with what you proposed for M1. As far as the fees, I don't.
I would always rather refer to fee schedules and have the exact fee in there, so we don't have to change it in the future. Do we need to have the fee in there at all?
I think there should be a definition of that, why the fee, and then per fee, then reference per fee schedule.
Well, maybe we should state that a season fee should be set by Public Works prior to that season. Or, you know, or something on that lines that way.
Well, it has to be
You know,
set by the village board, but yeah, I get what you're saying, yeah.
We can definitely talk about that more and bring something back. Wanted to have the discussion with the full board to see what their flavor was on it, because pulling it out, if you want to just leave in a fee schedule and we set the fee schedule, like Chris had mentioned, you know, I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I think that, you know, it makes sense. It's just a matter of making sure that we have something at the beginning of the year, that's all. I know we have an agreement.
Just leave the language as is, but so that where the money mounts, it's just referencing fee schedule. So a season fee per the fee schedule, blah, 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 and leave everything there. And then like in 3, etc. Return fee per the fee schedule.
Okay.
Then it's defining everything, or am I missing any other changes that you wanted in that? So
No, I do, I'm asking a question. Looking for clarification.
that's all I'm suggesting is, then it offers context why the fee exists.
We had we have an agreement with the school for their use, but this kind of, maybe we need to, we'll just talk about it more for the public works then. Okay. Thanks, that's what I had.
Discussion, possible approval, appoint trustee to the joint review board. Make a motion to appoint Chris Marino to the joint review board.
Second.
First and second, further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Discussion, review evidence of CUP violation at 260 Main Street. If I can speak to this. This is something brought up by Lyndon Crone over and over again, and in my opinion, it's a abuse of the board position. Definitely provided evidence that there is no conditional use violation in the, at 260 Main Street, and showed that it's been an apartment since like 1960.
I have evidence that shows that it's not.
No, you don't. You
Point
have-
of order, Mr. President. Well, there was some question by some trustees if, as pro tem, if I should step in and chair this part of the meeting. I didn't know how that mechanism would work, if it could at all.
Well, I think,
I'm
what-
deferring to you, so.
I think what needs to be done here is, you know, there's a discussion about this CUP violation, then there's a discussion about appointing special counsel to look at this. So by the ethics rules, I can't be involved in deciding Mike's evidence, Brandon's evidence, and give advice to the board on this. So I'm just gonna recommend something and then I'm gonna be quiet. And I think that you should decide whether you want to pursue this with a special counsel first. And then all that evidence can go to that person, they can write an opinion back to the board. And the board can decide how they want to proceed going forward.
Brandon Crowe make a motion to appoint a special counsel to address the conflict of interest concerns regarding the board president, specifically the CUP of 260 Main Street.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, you know, why wasn't this referred to, or has this not been referred to the planning commission that discusses and deals with conditional use permits? Isn't that usually the standard way that we refer all that stuff and have them look at violations and they deal with it, and then we as a board would come back with their recommendations?
That is correct.
Wow. Initially, I requested that be put back on the planning commission's agenda back in March.
Okay.
April was not put on the agenda at that time.
But
I thought instead of having it go on to them, we would deal with it as a full board, because that's where it's gonna end up anyways.
Who did you request that to?
So I went to Tasia.
And I felt like that, I don't know, at that point, I didn't understand how things should get on the plan commission agenda if they didn't come from an application for the plan commission meeting. So that's where I left it. I was not sure of the process.
Was there 2 board members that requested that?
I don't recall at that point.
Yes,
So,
there was.
I'm just quite asking a question, because I would think that, you know, our planning commission would want to at least have a weigh in on this kind of thing, with us getting a special counsel involved, of kind of circumventing our whole, you know, planning commission in that regard. So this is the first I've heard of it, other than when it was brought forth way back when, prior to Mike taking the seat.
It's still not conforming. We sat here as a board and talked about how we needed to send a strongly worded letter to the owner of Somerset Camp, because they had vehicles on their property that, and it wasn't being used for the property. It wasn't being used for the conditional use permit. They didn't have one. So that sparked my memory that we had this. And Mike still does not have a conditional use permit. He has shown no proof that.
The planning commission is the ones that reviewing, and have, my notes is that what I've been seeing going through here is the planning commission's been reviewing all of these CUPs. And if there's any violations, like you said, if you brought it up in April and there's no follow-up on it, I would think that at least getting it in front of the planning commission should be the first step before we start spending money on a special counsel. And if the planning commission feels that need, I mean, it was also put forth to the Attorney General's office too, and it was never
That was in
forwarded on from
regards to
there.
the residency, not in regards to the
Okay.
conditional use permit status.
So I still think in that regards that we should be looking at, and I would strongly oppose a motion to go to special counsel and spend money on special counsel before our planning commission and the zoning administrators take a look at the CUP.
There's a first and a second.
I understand that. I'm speaking under motion.
And under discussion, I'd like to say that I sent everybody a letter from the former owner that I purchased the cafe from, that it was an apartment, the 12 or so years that they owned it, and into the 80s when she was a child, there's always been somebody living up there. So that's part of the evidence. as
So how
well,
many
so-
people live there, Mike? How many people did you rent it out to?
How many people I rented it out?
Yeah.
Like 4.
Point of order.
How
This is
long?
not a fact finding deal. This is a motion that's put forward on this, and if the facts need to be presented, they should be presented to a specific board, not to us as trustees. So if Brandon wants to, spend the taxpayers' money and go forward with
I want to enforce
special
our
counsel, then you would utilize the right process like everybody else and go through the planning commission and get them to recommend that there's a violation, just like they've done with other people that have violated the CUPs.
Roll call vote, Dottie,
No,
Brian Seacard,
Yes.
Caleb Garn,
Yes.
Chris Marino,
Yes.
myself, no,
Randy Crone, yes.
Chris Dubak,
No,
so there was 1, 2, 3, 4,
4-3.
4 to 3, so if you guys are gonna spend taxpayers' money to.
Just like you do, Mike, on everybody, tell them that you don't like.
point of order on this, how do we go about appointing a special counsel then? Is that by a board, or is it something,
I can give you a couple names
okay?
and then, you can choose, the board will choose.
The board,
Mike has no choice. He can't choose, right? He can't be a part of that vote like he just voted on this last thing.
He can be part of it, but
To appoint his own special counsel that's gonna be going after him.
he's not gonna
Looking
be
into
going
it?
after, he's gonna be, well, I mean, it's the same, I guess, you have your opinion and he has his opinion, and maybe both wanna be recused and let the rest of the board do.
My biggest thing is like, once we do this, and he says, or the group comes up with something, and they vote for him, so then we're squashing it, or vice versa, right?
I will adhere to whatever the special counsel decides to do.
Good.
Anyway, I can get you a couple names. We had L'Oreal Sullivan last time. But I'll get you a couple other ones.
Yeah, I want someone from maybe outside of is that within your firm?
No,
Outside, yeah, let's have some
so
outside.
it can't be anybody, right?
Good.
Discussion possible approval ordinance revisions, section 2-3-2, certain officials to be appointed.
we had a discussion about this when we had talks about this before, and any thoughts about, I know there's a proposal out here about deleting and putting a majority of the board. Why wouldn't we have like a nomination committee to review those types of things and come up with a recommendation on these positions for the board rather than just putting it in front of the president?
Voted in by the taxpayers.
And then sir, public comments is closed. I keep it closed or you can leave.
Pardon?
Let me put a motion on the table. Make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance 2-3-2, certain officials to be appointed with the changes as noted.
Randy Crone, second.
It's been second. Any further discussion?
So again, my discussion on this is,
I'm not opposed to what Donnie, what you said in reference to committees. My concern is the specific officials. We already had a chief of police and director of work as majority of the village board. Let's just make it consistent.
Well, them are indefinite regardless.
So is village attorney.
Right.
Let's make it consistent.
So every year we gotta do the engineer, every 2 years.
For that matter, I mean, I think the only one that's statutorily, and correct me if I'm wrong, this would have to be verified, is probably the health officer, weed commissioner, and clerk treasurer. The others could be set indefinitely, and then they're contracted employees. Their term is by contract.
Okay.
First and second, and further discussion after that, all in favor?
I,
No. Myself, Dave.
No, Chris is on that. Reno's on the joint board of review.
No, I'm just. That was anyway.
that's not on here, is it?
Unfinished business, discussion possible approval, update of landowner complaints in River Hills,
Can I get
Aspen.
clarification, Mike? Sorry about that last, I heard the motion and the second, and then it was kind of a jumbled.
Let's do a roll call vote to change 2-3-2, Donnie.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Caleb.
Aye.
Chris, myself, Nate, Brandon.
Aye.
I,
Chris, okay. Discussion possible approval, update of landowner complaints in River Hills, Aspen Drive drainage.
The contractor and I did meet with the landowner where the majority of the disturbance is going to be, last week in October, I believe that was, and there was much discomfort about restoration and sod taking place this late in the year. Contractor and I did try to convince them that they can lay sod, that this process is gonna be fairly quick, and sod can go in as long as the ground's not frozen. There was still a lot of concern, and they ultimately were hard pressed on. We don't want this done this year. We want to wait until next year. So without their cooperation on this, it really has to wait, unfortunately. So I did speak to the contractor. He is putting this at the top of his list. He will get in there as soon as it's suitable, and we have an agreement with that property owner to do that excavation.
Can they do it while the frost is still, when it's coming out, so it doesn't, I mean, if we have a wet spring, that's where all the water collects and all the heavy equipment's gonna make a huge mess everywhere. Can you do it over the winter at all to start it, or how can that work?
The excavation area is primarily going to be the area that's gonna have the equipment. The rest of that is gonna be in the stormwater utility easement, and they're gonna have to clean it up before it's satisfactory. So
When does he anticipate starting?
as soon as weather allows. But so if we have a dry spring and things come, will be expedited. And again, if the conditions are sloppy and wet, he's just gonna end up tearing things up. He's gonna wait a little bit. So
So that's unfortunate if it goes into summer and they can't seed until fall or so. It just depends on how the spring goes, I guess. So not much we can do about it.
Do they have any idea in the spring? I mean, it was an agreement that maybe like by Memorial Day or after Memorial Day, they would start something like that, so that it would, because obviously we gotta wait for sod, right? To be, harvested. So it's gonna be mid-June before we shouldn't really be talking about this until June.
well, I don't know when they're start cutting sod to be exact. I don't know. I don't know if they export sod from somewhere or if they just simply wait until the local sod farms are cutting.
move the table this till May, review at that point in time.
Second,
Second.
further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign.
Josh, Lowell might be ready for you, or wanna go back to, 8B.
Yeah. Josh, are you on there?
Said he was there, or
Josh Lowe, are you available?
I think Andrew and I can attempt to, talk the board, through this.
Discussion possible approval, Board of Commissioners of Public Land Application Resolution 2024-07, authorizing the issuance of $1,510,000 state trust fund loan to provide funding for the purchase of property in tax increment district number 6. Go, Bob?
Yep, so this is for acquisition of additional village land. Cost of acquisition is, we listed 1.5 million. The intention to add this property into TID 6 for future commercial and industrial development. Property must be annexed into the village prior to acquisition in order to have it to eligible expense. So that's one piece that needs to happen prior to purchasing this. Finance acquisition of private property must be done with acquisition. And the reason for the state trust fund loan, competitive rates for taxable borrowing, 20-year fixed rate financing, simple to administer, prepayable each year, can draw funds for up to 4 months after approval, and it's not need to draw funds if village does not move forward with the acquisition. So if we don't go through it, we're not tied to it. Interest rate currently is at 6%. Any questions so far on any of that? Or
6% or 5.5?
I have 6 listed.
Okay.
Round up.
But in the boilerplate resolution is 5.5.
Yeah.
We-
right.
When we applied, it was 5.5, so that's the rate that we will get. Just a week after we applied, they raised the rates, so.
Anything else you want to add, Bob?
So timeline, is just approving this loan. Second step is the annexation of property in the village, which, the landowner has to cooperate with that. Approval of the TID 6 project plan amendment, and drawing funds from the state trust fund once that property is ready to be acquired.
What else are we gonna put TID 6 by?
A slurry of things. Right now, I don't have a complete detail of that, but there's some strong interest from,
How long is it gonna take to get water up there?
it's gonna be there next summer
Summer?
through Pineville.
Yep, yep.
So we'll have a utility connection there.
It'll be up there next summer.
What's that gonna put our debt capacity for the village at? Adding that 1.5 on there.
1.5 million more. I don't know,
What's our current debt capacity?
16, 18 million.
And what do we have out?
That's a document I'd have to pull up here.
That's what I was hoping to hear from Josh on that.
You can take up to 12% of the total tax assessed value in the TID, and I think we were only at like 4 or 5 before the other ones hit.
Pretty low.
Yeah, we're pretty low. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the issuance of $1,510,000 state trust fund loan to provide funding for the purchase of property in tax increment district number 6, given that the property gets annexed into the village.
Second.
Versus,
Just approve resolution 2024-7 as written in the
and approve resolution 2024-07 as presented in the packet. Any further discussion?
Just one question. We got debt payments coming on that under this year, or is that gonna be next year? On that 1.5 mil?
That won't be till next year. It hasn't even been purchased yet.
Right, but I mean, is there anything gonna come in 2025 for debt payments?
No,
That's all I needed to know.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Motion to convene to close session pursuant to Winstats 19.85, parent 1, parent E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, investing in public properties, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Developers agreement for Capstone Homes and purchase agreement, economic development update, and 2025 to 2026 police collective bargaining agreement. So second, and then the roll call vote. Second, roll call, Donnie?
Aye.
Ryan? Aye. Caleb?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Myself, yes.
Brandon,
Yes.
Aye.
Mr. Buck, yes. Convene to close session at 6:56 P M. We out of closed session at 7:33 P M. Is there a motion
To make a motion to approve the developers agreement and exhibits for Pine Val first edition.
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any other motions?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that, to approve the labor contract between the Village of Somerset and the Wisconsin Professional Police Association Law Enforcement Employee Relation Division for 2025-2026, authorizing a 4% wage increase for this year and next year. And the agreed upon language items between the union and the negotiating committee.
I will second.
The first, and then Ryan Seacard has the second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Caleb Garn make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Caleb with the first, Donnie with the second. Further discussion?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned at 7:34 P M. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.